The control room of the Vorlax command ship buzzed with a hum of confidence, holographic displays illuminating the faces of seasoned officers. General Virulon stood tall, his eyes fixed on the screen displaying their advancing fleet. His pride was palpable until everything went black. Alarms blared, shattering the calm. Status report. Now! Virulon's voice cut through the chaos, his fists slamming onto the table. An officer, eyes wide with disbelief, stammered, "Sir, it's the humans. They've destroyed the entire fleet." "Impossible!" Virulon roared, his mind refusing to accept the reality unfolding before him. He leaned closer to the console, desperately seeking any sign of the ships that had just moments ago seemed invincible. As the reality of the situation settled in, Virulon's arrogance crumbled. How could the humans, those primitive beings, wield such power? His thoughts raced, searching for an explanation, a flaw in the data. But the evidence was undeniable, their entire fleet annihilated in seconds. Back on Earth, Dr. Elena Foster stood before a group of high-ranking officials in a dimly lit conference room. A holographic projection of the Reaper spun slowly beside her, casting eerie shadows. Her voice was steady, betraying no hint of the turmoil that had driven her to this point. "This is our answer to the Vorlax threat," she began, her tone resolute. "We've harnessed AI to predict and counter their every move. The Vorlax never stood a chance." One of the officials leaned forward, his expression a mix of awe and concern. "How long until they retaliate?" Foster met his gaze, her eyes reflecting a determination forged in the crucible of loss. "They'll be reeling. We have a window to press our advantage, but we must act swiftly." The control room aboard the Vorlax ship was now a scene of utter chaos. Officers barked conflicting orders, trying to make sense of the sudden decimation. Virulon, usually the epitome of composure, felt a cold sweat trickle down his spine. The Vorlax Empire had never faced such a humiliating defeat. "Command, this is Virulon," he barked into the communicator. "Our fleet is gone." The response from Central Command was a cacophony of disbelief and anger. "What weapon could do this? You assured us of victory." Virulon's voice trembled with a mix of rage and fear. "It's unlike anything we've seen. We need to regroup and reassess." As the gravity of their situation sunk in, Virulon's thoughts turned inward. The loss was not just of ships but of prestige, of an empire's invincibility. The humans had achieved the unthinkable, and it was his responsibility to find a way forward. In the sterile, high-tech human research lab, Dr. Foster continued to brief the officials. The tension in the room was palpable, but beneath it lay a thread of hope, a belief that humanity had finally turned the tide. "We've bought ourselves time, but the war isn't over," Foster said, her voice firm yet laced with caution. "We need to ensure the Reaper remains unmatched." As the meeting adjourned, Foster stepped out onto the observation deck. The sun was rising, casting a golden hue over the horizon. It was the first dawn she had seen in months without the looming fear of invasion. She allowed herself a moment of reflection, feeling the weight of her creation's impact. General Virulon, aboard his crippled command ship, stared out into the wreckage-strewn void. His mind raced with strategies, plans for retaliation. The Vorlax Empire would not crumble under his watch. But as the cold silence of space pressed in, he knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges unlike any he had faced before. The stage was set, the players in place. The war for galactic supremacy had taken a new turn, and the balance of power was forever altered. Dr. Elena Foster's heart raced as she faced the assembly of high-ranking officials in the dimly lit conference room. The holographic projection of the Reaper continued to spin beside her, casting sharp shadows across their faces. Silence hung heavy in the air, punctuated only by the faint hum of the projector. The Vorlax fleet was obliterated in seconds. Foster began, her voice steady but laden with the gravity of their situation. "Our weapon, the Reaper, employs advanced AI to predict and counter enemy movements with unparalleled precision." The officials exchanged uneasy glances. "One, A stern-faced general broke the silence. "This is a remarkable achievement, Dr. Foster. But how do we ensure the Vorlax don't adapt and retaliate?" Foster drew a deep breath, meeting his gaze with unwavering determination. "We must keep evolving the Reaper. Our current advantage is temporary. The Vorlax will undoubtedly seek revenge. We need to stay ahead, both in technology and strategy." Outside the conference room, the research facility buzzed with activity. Scientists and engineers moved with purpose, their faces etched with a mix of excitement and urgency. Foster walked through the bustling corridors, the weight of responsibility pressing heavily on her shoulders. She had to brief her team on the next steps. There was no time to lose. Meanwhile, aboard the remnants of the Vorlax command ship, General Virulon struggled to maintain order. The once mighty fleet, now reduced to debris, was a stark reminder of their unexpected defeat. He stared at the fractured view screen. The image of space littered with Vorlax wreckage burned into his mind. "We must regroup and analyze this human weapon," Virulon commanded, his voice a steely mask over his growing desperation. "Send scouts to gather intelligence on Earth's defenses and this Reaper." His officers scrambled to comply, the chaos of their previous defeat giving way to a grim determination. The Vorlax Empire had never faced such a formidable foe, and the path to reclaiming their dominance would be fraught with peril. Back on Earth, Dr. Foster convened her team in a high-tech laboratory. Holographic schematics of the Reaper filled the air, each component meticulously detailed. She addressed the room with a commanding presence. "We've achieved a significant victory, but this is just the beginning," she asserted. "The Vorlax will retaliate. We need to enhance the Reaper, anticipate their next move, and prepare for all contingencies." A young engineer raised his hand. "Dr. Foster, what if the Vorlax find a way to counter our AI? How do we stay ahead?" Foster nodded, appreciating the question's insight. "We must innovate continuously. Our AI's learning algorithms need to adapt faster than the Vorlax can strategize. This requires relentless testing, real-time data analysis, and above all, our unwavering commitment." As the team dispersed to their respective tasks, Foster allowed herself a moment of reflection. She gazed out of the lab's observation window, where the sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the city below. Despite the triumph, the uncertainty of what lay ahead gnawed at her. The stakes were higher than ever, and failure was not an option. In the cold expanse of space, General Virulon's scouts embarked on their mission, slipping past human defenses undetected. Virulon watched their progress on a dimly lit screen, his expression a mixture of resolve and anxiety. The Vorlax had been humbled, but they were far from defeated. The tension continued to mount, the fragile balance of power teetering on the edge of chaos. Both sides prepared for the inevitable clash, each driven by desperation and determination. As the curtain fell on another day, the galaxy held its breath, waiting for the next move in this high-stakes game of survival. Dr. Elena Foster's heart pounded as she surveyed the laboratory, her team engrossed in their tasks. Holographic displays flickered with complex algorithms and weapon schematics. She knew they were racing against time. The Vorlax would not remain passive for long. "We need to push the AI's learning capabilities further," Foster instructed, her voice resolute. "We must anticipate every possible Vorlax strategy." As her team nodded and returned to their workstations, Foster's thoughts drifted to the impending clash. The Reaper had given humanity a fighting chance, but the Vorlax were cunning and relentless. She could not afford to be complacent. Meanwhile, aboard a stealthy Vorlax scout ship, Captain Xyler monitored Earth's defenses. The ship's cloaking technology kept them hidden as they gathered intelligence on the humans' new weapon. Xyler's mandate was clear: discover the weaknesses of the Reaper. Focus on their communication channels, Xyler ordered his crew. We need to understand how they control this weapon. The scout ship's advanced sensors scanned the planet below, capturing data streams and analyzing patterns. Xyler's eyes narrowed as he began to piece together the intricacies of the Reaper's control systems. Back at the Human Research Lab, Foster convened a critical meeting with her top engineers. The atmosphere was tense, each face reflecting the weight of their mission. "Any breakthroughs?" she asked, her gaze sweeping across the room. An engineer named Mark stepped forward. "We've enhanced the AI's predictive algorithms. It's now capable of real-time adaptations, even in the face of unexpected tactics." Foster's expression softened slightly. "Excellent, but we can't stop there. We need to ensure the Reaper remains impenetrable." As the team dispersed, Foster felt a pang of unease. Despite their progress, the Vorlax threat loomed large. She returned to her workstation, immersing herself in the code, her fingers flying over the keyboard. In orbit around Earth, Xyler's ship continued its covert surveillance. The captain's suspicions were confirmed. The Reaper's strength lay in its centralized AI control. If they could disrupt this nexus, they could neutralize the weapon. "Prepare the interference drones," Xyler commanded. "We'll launch a test strike to assess their defenses." As the drones deployed, their cloaked forms zipped silently through space. Xyler watched intently, ready to exploit any vulnerability. The first drone approached Earth's atmosphere, emitting a high-frequency signal designed to scramble AI communications. Back on Earth, alarms blared through the lab. Foster's head snapped up, her eyes darting to the screens. "We're detecting a massive signal disruption," one of her analysts reported. "It's targeting the Reaper's control frequencies." "Activate countermeasures," Foster barked. The team scrambled to respond, their fingers dancing across consoles. The lab's systems hummed as they initiated a defensive protocol. Foster's heart raced as she monitored the situation, her mind racing with possibilities. The drone's signals were powerful, but the Reaper's AI began to adapt, shifting frequencies to evade the interference. "Hold steady," Foster urged, her voice tense but calm. "The AI is compensating." In space, Xyler watched as the drone's signals faltered. The Reaper's AI was proving more resilient than anticipated. "Recall the drones," Xyler ordered. "We need a new approach." As the drones returned to the scout ship, Xyler's mind churned with strategies. The humans were formidable, but the Vorlax would not be outdone. The tension in the human lab eased slightly as the immediate threat subsided. Foster exhaled, her shoulders relaxing. Yet she knew this was only the beginning. The Vorlax had tested their defenses and would return stronger. "We need to stay vigilant," she told her team. "They're probing for weaknesses. We can't let our guard down." The cold vacuum of space hummed with tension as both human and Vorlax forces braced for the next move. Dr. Elena Foster stood at the center of the control room, her eyes scanning the array of holographic displays. Every muscle in her body was taut with anticipation. "We've detected a massive Vorlax fleet mobilizing," reported an analyst, his voice taut with urgency. "They're heading straight for Earth." Foster's mind raced. "Prepare the Reaper. Activate all defensive systems." As alarms blared, the control room erupted into a hive of activity. Engineers and scientists moved with practiced precision, their faces reflecting a mix of fear and determination. Foster took a deep breath, her thoughts focused on the task at hand. In the depths of space, General Virilon stood on the bridge of the Vorlax flagship, his expression a mask of resolve. He watched as the fleet assembled, each ship glinting ominously against the backdrop of stars. "This is our final gambit," Virilon announced to his officers. "We will strike with everything we have and reclaim our dominance." The officers nodded, their eyes steely with conviction. They knew failure was not an option. Their empire's future hung in the balance. Back on Earth, the Reaper systems roared to life. Holographic interfaces flickered as the AI processed vast streams of data, predicting enemy movements with razor-sharp accuracy. Foster monitored the feed, her heart pounding. "Status on the Vorlax fleet?" she asked, her voice cutting through the noise. "They're within striking distance," an officer replied. "ETA 10 minutes. Maintain focus," Foster commanded. "We need to stay one step ahead." As the minutes ticked by, the tension in the control room thickened. The Reaper's algorithms churned relentlessly, adapting to every potential Vorlax tactic. Foster's eyes flickered to the main screen, where the Vorlax ships loomed ever closer. Suddenly, a new alert flashed. Incoming communication from the Vorlax flagship. The communications officer announced. "Put it through," Foster said, her voice steady. General Virulon's holographic image materialized, his gaze piercing. "Dr. Foster," he began, his tone laced with both respect and menace. "Your weapon is formidable, but it won't save you this time." Foster met his gaze unflinchingly. "We'll see about that, General." The transmission cut off, and the room plunged back into its frenzied preparation. Foster's mind whirred with strategies, her focus unyielding. "Deploy the Reaper's countermeasures," she ordered. "Prepare for full engagement." In the void of space, the Vorlax fleet surged forward, weapons primed. The first wave of attack hit Earth's defenses, a barrage of energy blasts that illuminated the dark expanse. But the Reaper responded in kind, its AI-driven systems unleashing a torrent of counterfire that intercepted the incoming assault with breathtaking precision. The control room vibrated with the intensity of the battle. Foster's eyes never left the screen, tracking every movement, every shift in the Vorlax formation. "General, their defenses are stronger than anticipated," Virulon's second-in-command reported, a note of worry in his voice. "Press the attack," Virulon barked. "We cannot falter now." The Vorlax ships pressed closer, but the Reaper's AI adapted swiftly, exploiting every weakness in their strategy. Explosions rippled through the enemy fleet as the Reaper's directed energy weapons found their marks. Minutes felt like hours as the battle raged on. The control room was a blur of activity, the tension palpable. Foster's hands clenched into fists as she watched the Vorlax flagship take a critical hit, its hull breaching. "General, we've sustained heavy damage," cried an officer aboard the Vorlax flagship. Virulon's face twisted in frustration and despair. "Retreat," he ordered reluctantly. "We've lost this round." The Vorlax fleet began to withdraw, their ships limping away from the battlefield. In the control room, a collective sigh of relief rippled through the team. Foster allowed herself a brief smile of triumph. "We did it," she whispered, the weight of their victory settling over her. As the Vorlax ships vanished into the distance, the enormity of their achievement dawned on everyone in the room. The battle was over, but the war was far from finished. Foster knew that vigilance was essential. They had won a crucial battle, but the fight for humanity's future continued. The Reaper systems powered down, the holographic displays dimming. Foster looked around at her exhausted yet elated team. "Excellent work, everyone. We've proven our resilience today. Let's prepare for whatever comes next." With that, the team dispersed, ready to face the challenges ahead. The galaxy had witnessed humanity's strength, and the Vorlax would think twice before underestimating them again. As the stars twinkled serenely outside the observation window, Dr. Elena Foster stood tall, a beacon of hope and determination in the vast expanse of space.